Then I don't remember anything further about him because I don't know if he graduated or not. I think he did.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah. And he
I
took
did.
college courses and everything,
Oh,
but
I did.
again, he preferred to do the
I did. I didn't. See, I dropped.
self-education.
I didn't drop off, but I flunked a couple of courses and wound up having to go to summer school, and I didn't graduate with the class. But he might
Mhm.
not have been in my same year. I don't know. I don't know. Just so happened in certain classes,
Mhm.
but I remember so often he'd be out for a long time, or just maybe out for a few days, and the teacher would call him and ask him a question. He wouldn't answer the question directly, but what he'd come up with would be a great, essay on something else. This is great. It's not,
Mhm.
really. If you asked for pork chops and somebody gave you peas or something, or vice versa,
Mhm.
and that's the way it was, you think, Jesus, what the hell is this? It sounds great what he's saying, but it's not what you asked him.
Mhm.
And what it was is, uh, I don't know whether it was, maybe it was his way of saying, yes, I didn't waste time reading this book, but I read these other books.
Right. Right.
And he must have the teachers really buffalo. And then I don't remember anything further until 19. Oh God, let's see, early 30s, I guess, is when they had that. When Rocco Caputo spotted a piece in the newspaper saying that there's going to be a meeting at the psychology club and Chamber of Commerce.
Uh-huh.
So he and I went, and I don't know why we did. There was nothing else to do, I guess, the depression, walk downtown. And we came back, and we enjoyed it, and we told your mother about it. And she wanted to come the next time, and she came down, and your father was there. I guess he was speaking to her. And first thing you know, he was visiting her at the house, I guess.
Mhm.
And that was it. And I left. I might have been 30 years later, 36.
Mhm.
36, I can't, I just don't know, because I left home in 36.
Mhm.
And came to New York, and I'd get home once in a great while. I
Mhm.
probably seen him. I don't know. Haven't seen him much at the house, but apparently he was spending a lot of time at the house with Horlocker, Rem Horlocker,
Mhm. Mhm.
and Doris Bliss,
Yep.
and and the
Didn't
next
Doris
time,
die of kidney failure?
yeah, right.
Yeah, I thought so.
Then um, the next I remember, I don't know, he went off like Kent for the life of me. But I remember he came to New York. He came by. It must have been 1939
Yeah. Mhm.
when he came to New York. They were married, and he came and he wanted to come to New York. He wanted to get out of Scranton anyway. And Aunt May found we were living in a basement apartment on West 16th Street,
Mhm.
between 7th and 8th Avenue. And Aunt May rented the apartment. You'd walk upstairs first to the first floor, and then walk down to get in this basement apartment. And they were nice because they had little concrete patio in back. One of the few things that have extras besides an apartment in New York City. That's what we liked. And one next door was full rent too, so Aunt May rented one for your mother and father. And they came down, and your father was always reading germ concerts,
Uh huh. I
and
remember that. Yeah.
Aunt May bought a second-hand bed and a second-hand mattress,
Mhm.
and I remember him bringing the mattress out on the concrete slab and scrubbing it with Clorox.
Mhm.
And I remember I was arguing with him that even if you went to the Waldorf Astoria, they wouldn't scrub the mattress with Clorox after. And he was that. And anyway, they get settled in there, and I think your mother was always afraid of it was a Chinese laundry. There were little storefronts, and the buildings had these stores that were set down 2 or 3 steps.
Mhm.
So you couldn't get into the basement apartment by going through the stores, so you'd go up the stairs and then down,
Mhm.
and that was behind these storefronts. So there's a grocery store in front of where we lived, and right part of the same building, the Chinese laundry. And your
Mhm.
mother was worried about the Chinese,
Ah.
and said too much that Fu Manchu or whatever, and Boston stuff.
Mhm.
And your father got a job, something like that.
Was he
Shortly before, huh?
into a lot of philosophy and arguments
yeah.
or discussions about
God.
those
Oh,
at
God.
that point?
It was just, yeah, right. It's just, he's always so interested in, you know, you discuss anything, man. He'd be interested in any field, any subject, you know. Nature or philosophy or, you know, music, poetry.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, it was so strange to see him, like, you know, uh, having to do for a living what he did, you know. But it was light, it wasn't long. And then we moved to, it was a terrible thing to do. I really, looking back on it now, but we had an opportunity, and May and I, to move to Jersey City.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like opportunity, sounds strange. Opportunity to Jersey City.
Right.
Talk about, and May's brother was going to try to get me a job in the shipyard, you know? And we moved to Jersey City. And then, you know, your mother and father, certainly your mother, were really upset. You know, really felt stranded in New York City. So then Aunt May got him a place, and we got a job in Jersey City taking care of a small apartment house.
I remember that.
Superintendent.
Yep, I remember.
This is the real one in Jersey City, or the one
I remember.
The one in Newark, you probably remember.
Maybe Newark. I remember an apartment house.
In Jersey City is only a small one. No, I don't think you weren't even born there.
Oh, well, some apartment building I remember going to.
Right. That was in Newark years later.
Yeah.
And so we got this job taking care of this 6-family house, nothing to a shovel of snow and stuff, and we got free reign. And so Aunt May inquired of the real estate agent if he had any other openings like that. And he did, but it was downtown, a really rough part of Jersey City.
Oh.
Really slum area. So Aunt May assumed that your mother and father would move in there. They moved in and stayed about a week. And your mother went home, and then your father went to Connecticut after that.
Mm-hmm. Was Uncle Gabriel in Connecticut at this point?
No, I think your father was.
My father was the first?
Maybe, I think your father was the first, right. Oh, what's his name? Alex Groves was there.
Ah,
But
Alex and Margie.
I don't know whether Alex helped your father get a job or not. He went on his own. He got a job with Remington Rand.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't. I used to visit once in a while, but I don't remember much of what went on. But then Gabriel went up, Frank went up, Carl went up.
Carl went up, yeah.
Vance was up there.
Yeah, I remember. That's right. I remember the apartment there too.
And,
the big yellow couch.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I don't know. From what I understand, your father tried to bring in a union to Remington Rand and never even organized.
Yeah, try to organize the union there.
Right, Remington
because
Rand.
the people were being abused.
Right, one of the biggest companies, you know.
Right.
That would have been just next to impossible. People have been trying to organize it for years.
Mm-hmm.
Then he got another job somewhere else, some Bell company or something. I think
because they used to fire you if you had any union activity at that time.
Sure,
now they can't get away with that.
Right, they fired Frank. And then he got another job, another company, and I think it was the same problem. He had the same problem because he was defending one particular workman who had a compensation problem.
Right.
Who got hurt on the job. And really fought for him because he found.
Yeah, because he would articulate for them because they a lot of them weren't schooled and they didn't know how to speak for themselves. So
he was actually like the public defender. You know,
right. Yeah. So he's always losing jobs because of it.
That was his case, right? Exactly. That's right. Imagine that.
Yeah.
And I remember him telling me once somebody who had worked with Remington Rand, this man had been a supervisor. Said, Charles, you might as well get out of Bridgeport. You're blackballed, all the big companies.
Mm-hmm.
Completely blackballed.
Yeah.
And that's when he finally got that job in the laundry.
Mm-hmm.
But he seemed to enjoy it.
He loved to fight. He didn't care if he was going to lose his job.
Yeah, with all the women he worked with, and he was, always just, they just loved him for that. They just crazy. That's what it was. He could go into a laundry with plain, ordinary working women, and have the time of his life, and they had the time of their life.
Yeah.
Listen to him, just loved him.
I remember him saying some of the women would have like double jobs, and then they'd have to be home taking care of their children and cooking, and their husbands were, kind of abusive, physically abusive and emotionally abusive, and he would let them sleep and he'd do their job. He was a supervisor. And take a chance on being fired for doing that, but he felt that they needed some
always
rest.
Sticking his neck out like that.
Yeah.
Always saw beyond what the obvious. I mean, he saw, where anybody else would say, well, it's just a working woman, he would see that. And they'd probably come to him with their father. Maybe tell him. He was, and then I used to come up to visit once in a while when you were in, what you call Melville.
Yeah.
I always enjoyed those trips. He'd come down once in a while. Or he'd come down with Leo or something like that, or by train even.
Right.
And,
and how about with Elmer, when you used to have all those discussions with Elmer?
Oh, God.
I mean, you'd go on for hours and hours.
Elmer was just so fascinated by him. That was Elmer's, Elmer had probably come from Denmark some 10 or 15 years before. And, you know, found most Americans just a pain in the neck and stuff like that. But when your father came, God, he put out the welcome mat, you know. I think it was my gift to Elmer. I suppose that's what got me in good with him, because I introduced your father to him. So when your father had come and put out all those choices, that was really, really something. Between the music and the philosophy and the discussions, it was great. And, God, I guess the memory's fading, but all I can tell you is that the wind-up was, I really thought that when Aunt May found that little bookstore for me, I thought, well, I had worked at Sears Roebuck, had earned a living, and I thought, my father wasn't feeling that. I thought, wait if he can come down here, live upstairs, in the 2 rooms upstairs, take care of the bookstore, and by the time I set it up, and then he came down to kind of, you know, think it over and think about it. You know, you were quite young, and you were in high school yet.
Right.
And he was kind of concerned about that, whether he could make a move like that, and you know, it wasn't a definite plan. It was just a vague plan. I had, you know, maybe I figured maybe a year or two when Nina's grown up and maybe going to college or going off, then maybe he could come down to see with her. I guess by that time Tommy was at Stevens, right?
Tommy, yeah. Let's see, I went to California, and then Tommy, a year later, he went to Stevens to college. Charlie was already in college. Then I went to nursing school. And, because he died while I was in college. I was in 65. December 65.
Was it 65?
Yeah, December of 65, December 17th, because we were married in September of 66. And so it was...
65, right. Anyway, apparently what happened is, I never knew, you know, he was really, you can see he was getting sicker and sicker, and he didn't want to see a doctor.
Right.
He didn't want to see a doctor. And then your mother went home because she was concerned about you. Your mother went home for a time, and Aunt May got hysterical and thought, he won't go see a doctor, and he's obviously sick.
Right.
What am I doing? So she put him in the car and drove him home.
Right.
And,
well, he was in the hospital, remember, for about a week. He was in the hospital for about a week.
That's what he was, that's right.
Yeah. And I was taking exams, so I sent my brother there to see what was going on, to try to get him to... Well, see, I think he knew he was dying. I think he knew at that point there wasn't anything... If he had gone to a doctor many, many years before, they could have had him on digitalis, because he had a rheumatic heart, and he went into congestive heart failure. And that takes years, but I mean, there's not much you can do once the heart gets that enlarged.
But he had no equal. I've lived all these years and I found nobody, not because he was related or a friend or brother, you know, seeing a man with so many interests and so interesting. As he, I mean, you were maybe too close to him, you didn't realize it, you know.
I think I realized more when I got into college and all these college students started coming to the house to hear him speak. And then I started to realize, you know, the charisma that he had. And especially to watch him tell stories over and over, all different kinds of stories, over and over, and people would beg to hear them again. And I thought, boy, this is a gift to be able to do that.
To this day, I still remember a lot of his stories. You know, I remember the story of the he made it a point to say they were Irish people, you know.
Right.
And how the man died, and maybe the second day of the wake, one of the children touched him and said, "My God, Ma, he's warm." And the mother said, "Hot or cold, he goes out in the morning."
I remember that.
He saw each other.
Hot or cold, he goes out in the morning, right? He was an alcoholic or something,
He'd been
but
such a terror, right? He was so
abusive
bad, right?
Irishman, yeah.
That's not bad.
Yeah, he loved to tell Irish jokes and Irish stories and read the poetry and then talk about philosophy and politics and everything. And I tell you, they used to stop me at the college and they'd say, you know, can I come and talk to your father? And people that didn't even know him but just heard the reputation. And that was, you know, gave me a lot of pride.
Right. Oh, sure. And even when he was working and stuff like that, he would bring people interested in, you know, labor and stuff to the house, you know, discuss things like that. He was very, very liberal, you know, nowadays. And it was great that he was, because he was just a decent human being. He wasn't happy seeing anybody suffer and unhappy. He just, in his own way, wanted to correct it, you know.
Right, yeah. Yeah, he was always fighting for the underdog.
Yeah,
you know.
He was the most interesting person I ever knew. Never met anybody.
Let me see if I can get on. You and Elmer and he, what kind of specific things did you talk about? Philosophy or politics?
Right, politics, whatever. You know, we just move back. But we certainly squeezed in an awful lot in a couple of days. It would often be a couple of day visit.
I remember that, yeah. And you'd go over to Elmer's and we wouldn't see you for 2 days. I mean, we'd see you at night for dinner and go to bed, and then the next morning you'd be gone and you'd sit there, you know, across the street, but nobody was...
Quite interesting man. You know, I know. I suppose maybe because he's one of the few people I'd met from you know, Scandinavian countries. I got to know pretty well. He lived, you know, he lived there. He's just he had been married, I think, and I think he brought his wife from. He came from Denmark and he had a job in Baltimore as a dairy chemist, and he went to Denmark and married this girl he knew about, and she didn't like it here. And after a time, she went back, and I think he just really bothered him, you know.
Oh, is that right?
And he just
Yeah, my father really enjoyed Elmer, though. I mean, all those.
Elmer did wood carving. I mean, his father appreciated art and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, his talent. He really appreciated that talent that Elmer had. Yeah. Plus a different perspective that Elmer brought on the discussions.
Yeah, right.
You know, rather than just have all Americans there, people from different countries that could.
Right. And your father would spend hours sometimes with May, you know. They talk about the, you know, the simplest things, you know. You'd be interested.
Yeah.
And you laughing. And I think I told you that before too about Aunt May. You know, she never had much formal schooling, you know. But she remembers your father reading Shelley's Ode to Nightingale. Anyway, the words start out, hail to thee, blithe spirit, bird thou never wert. Anyway, one day your father walked into our house, kind of unexpected, and Aunt May blurted out, hail to thee, blithe spirit. And he got such a kick out of that, you know, to think that she remembered that, you know.
Oh, that's good.
And she, you know, hadn't seen him in a time. So glad to see him. She just, you know, without saying, oh, hello, Charlie, or it's Charlie and Ray, she just yelled out. It was so spontaneous that it was
yeah, he really felt good about stimulating people's interest in poetry and philosophy and politics. And
certainly did. Certainly did. And he could do it so easily, it seems. And every man should have been a teacher.
Yeah, yeah. We really tried to talk him into, in his older years, going into, well, he was going to take some courses at the college. I know he was going to take a couple of courses about Joyce. And he was ready to do that, but he was really having problems with his health then. It was very difficult for him to do that, because, I mean, of course, he was so well read about Joyce. And so he used to have a lot of discussions with the college students.
That would have been great if he could have...
yeah, he liked James Joyce, yeah.
Got into, he could have done a great job with that, you know. You know, strange, well, this is irrelevant. I'll mention I was only at start. When I was had a bookstore in New Brunswick, someone told me they were having a course in Ulysses, and maybe did I want to listen in, you know, the course. And I went down, and the person who was going to run teach the course. First thing she says, "You'll have to excuse me if I'm not quite up to it. It's been some years since I read Ulysses." I thought, oh God.
Oh my
And
goodness.
then she went on, and what she did was she tried to get some student who had read some part of it to get up and carry the whole course. Apparently she didn't know or didn't remember anything else about it.
Oh gee, my father
I went
loved
twice,
you.
and I thought, this is too much.
Yeah.
But your father would have, if he'd have spent time with that, he'd have probably been.
Yeah, because he used to have major discussions with college students about Ulysses. They used to come over, and you're right, he should have been a teacher, you know. I really enjoyed that.
But he talked about the time he went to hear Paul Robeson sing in Peekskill in New York.
Yeah, good.
When the American Legion and all the right-wingers were picketing them. And finally, when they were leaving, they were throwing stones at their cars and trying to block the cars from leaving.
Yeah.
He was in a lot of pictures like that.
Yeah, he was.
I guess he just went to hear him sing, and that's it.
Right.
And another time in Bridgeport, apparently he went to some meeting, some liberal meeting, liberal group, and a mob attacked more or less. You know?
Right.
I think he maybe was a speaker.
You
know? And anyway, Vance pulled him away, and when he was leaving, someone identified him as one of the speakers or one of the gang.
Right.
And Vance dragged him away and said, "No, this is so and so from some suburb." You know, so you get the wrong guy, and he.
Yeah, I remember that. He said otherwise they would have beaten him up or killed him or whatever because he was the speaker. Yeah.
He used to really stick his neck out to him anyway.
I know.
God, it's a wonder. Of course, if he could have, even if they decided to attack him, if he could have got in a few words, he probably would have disarmed him. You know?
Yeah, you're right.
That's how good he was.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing how he could turn people's point of view around.
Right.
They would come in and they'd be very adamant, passionate about their point of view, and he would just be able to, again, disarm them and then turn them around.
And not have them feel upset about it, not feeling as though they'd feel good about it.
Right,
That was a great charm of Charlie. He didn't. He'd have you finally agreeing with him and feeling great about it.
Right.
Feeling as though you learned something instead of someone made embarrassed you or somebody just disagrees with me.
Right. And then you'd go out of there passing on the word, being passionate for his philosophy or his point of view. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know, he tells some stories about, in Scranton. One favorite story was he belonged to, I think it was a Young Communist League. This is maybe the 20th, 30th. Those days it was common,
Yeah.
And they were to have a wiener roast.
And
that story. And he and some Jewish kid were on the committee, and they were supposed to go out and buy the hot dogs, and he said they just kept going, walking past butcher shop after butcher shop,
Talking.
Yeah. No talking, and your father said, "Well, here's a shop, let's buy the hot dogs here." The guy said, "No. And then he brought him down to the Jewish section and said, "Here's a good kosher butcher shop." And what your father got a kick out of was the fact that the young communist is supposed to be atheist,
Right.
And here he was, insisted, walked miles out of his way to get kosher hot dogs.
That's right.
He loved that story.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of well, you probably know all the stories. What does Frank say?